Good morning. We're just below the Verde Rim in the Pine Mountain Wilderness area. This valley down here got burned out in a forest fire a few years back. You can see some fresh growth coming up from the bottom now. And this is where I'm going to break to talk about some anime.
Battle Ferry Yukikaze.
Battle Ferry Yukikaze is a sci-fi alien invasion anime from a couple of years ago. Gonzo's 5-part OVA series, based on novels by Choi Kanbayashi, has more thoughtful and demanding plot than many sci-fi anime. It also boasts some spectacular 3D computer-animated aerial combat sequences. It's been released in North America by Bandai. In the near future, an alien race called the Jam opens a hyperspatial passageway from their world to Earth and invades through it. After the United Earth Forces drive the Jam back through the gate to their home world, the Earth Forces give chase and establish a foothold on the alien world of Ferry. There, under twin suns and a green sky, they defend the entrance to the passageway on the enemy side of space. The UN's Ferry Air Force, the FAF, has now been fighting on Ferry for over 3 decades. The human bases on Ferry have grown large and isolated from Earth by the passageway, almost a small nation-state of its own. It's been so long since the war was fought on Earth, in fact, that much of humanity has forgotten about the ongoing interplanetary war. The only reminder of the Jam back on Earth is the towering cloud formation surrounding the passageway down in Antarctica. The FAF no longer draws its recruits from the patriotic elite of mankind, but rather from whatever adventurers, misfits, and outcasts it can get. Out of sight, out of mind. The first character we're going to meet is Lynn Jackson, author of the definitive book on the Ferry War. But it's been so long since the Jam have been on Earth that many now think of her work as fiction. She's not a major character here, but she provides us with some background on the war. The main character is Lieutenant Ray Fukai. He's one of the elite pilots of the Intel Gathering Special Air Force of the FAF. He's also a very quiet and withdrawn young man. Ray's Sylph fighter jet, B-3, is nicknamed Yukikaze. That's the title, of course. The Yukikaze has an AI on board that works with its pilot, Ray. Despite the considerable aerial combat going on, shooting down the Jam aircraft isn't the SAF's primary job on Ferry. The SAF are intel gatherers, observing the battles between the rest of the FAF and the Jam fighters to analyze enemy technology and tactics. Heading back to the SAF base from Ferry after one such aerial battle that he observed, Lieutenant Fukai's Yukikaze is approached by an aircraft that doesn't have an IFF. It appears to be one of Earth's fighters, another Sylph, but Yukikaze says otherwise, and Lieutenant Fukai takes Yukikaze's word for it and engages.
It's the same model as ours. It's not an enemy. Second Lieutenant Fukai, you saw it, didn't you? That's a Sylph. Make contact then. I'm trying. There's no response. Comm channels are closed. Then it's an enemy. Lieutenant, stop! Do you realize what you're doing? Yukikaze says it's an enemy.
Back at base, there'll be a big investigation of Ray Fukai's decision to open fire on that unknown aircraft. The story is deliberately coy about revealing whether the aircraft really was Friend or Jam, so I'm not going to spill the beans at this point. Ray's commanding officer, Rager Bukhar, is also an old friend of Lieutenant Fukai, and he stands by his buddy throughout the investigation. His CO in term is General Cooley, commander of the SAF base, and eventually Lieutenant Fukai will be placed under the observation of the base doctor, meaning Shrink. Lieutenant Fukai and the Yukikaze AI he's partnered with seem to have some special relationship with each other. Yukikaze may even be Ray's best friend. They may also have a special relationship with the Jam, and the enemy seems to reciprocate that interest. The Yukikaze's AI only uses text messages for communications, though. There's almost a spooky ghost story atmosphere to the messages Yukikaze types out in luminous letters to Lieutenant Fukai on its comm screen. Despite the length of the war, Earth is yet to capture or even see one of the aliens, only their weaponry. So no human knows what the Jam look like or what their goals are. But it slowly becomes clear that the Jam have managed to do their own intelligence work, matching mankind's technology and combat tactics. And there's a growing paranoia they've somehow compromised FAF security.
Huh? What are you doing?
Get out.
Oh, sure. Sorry. I just wanted to confirm the mission data they sent us.
Hey, this is a superior officer.
The characters in Yukikaze are hard to like or even get to know really well. Rei Fukai is so pulled into his shell that there's no way for the viewer to get into his head and empathize with him. In fact, Rei is so quiet and closed off that it's hard to see how Commander Bukar became his friend, especially when we learn in flashback that Rei used to be even weirder. In fact, Rei exists in a fog of vague suspicions around the base and in our heads. He may be the central character, but we're not going to cheer for him wholeheartedly, at least until we figure out which side he's on. The mood of the story is dark and conspiratorial. Away from the fights and the skies over Ferry, it's paced as slow as the cast contends with their own isolation and the mutual suspicion of the enemy and their friends alike, and Earth.
The goal is to eliminate the so-called human element from it.
Can't be. Not that.
It can if survival's the issue.
The story of Yukikaze is mostly episodic, with each OVA telling an almost self-contained story that simply builds on what came before. The overall story moves in small steps within the shorter scenarios of each OVA. There were several delays during Yukikaze's production, resulting in long gaps between some of the releases, especially between Part 4 and the final Part 5. That seems to show in the video itself, which seems to have a jump in plot between 4 and 5. That makes Yukikaze seem sometime more like a set of discrete episodes rather than a cumulative plotline. No doubt the novels would fill in some of the gaps here. Gonzo's done some outstanding CGI 3D work on the aerial combat, which is fast-paced and really exciting as they battle under alien skies. And there's some interesting plane, boat, and flying carrier concepts here. I also noticed that Bandai have given it a pretty fair English dub. This is one of those serious shows about adult characters with a thoughtful plotline. It's a little hard to get into. It holds you at arm's length with some torpid pacing and closed-off characters. It bursts into life only in the aerial combat scenes. Furthermore, it refuses to spell things out for us dunces, demanding that we pay close attention to its nuanced suggestions and conspiracies. But it's rewarding enough to be worth the effort of paying attention, and I give Yukikaze 4 stars. Bandai recently released the entire 5-part OVA in one of their economical Anime Legends set of 3 DVDs in North America. That's about 4.5 hours of video. The videos include some extras such as a making-of video. I recorded down here in this valley to stay out of the direct wind. Let me give you a look before I go at what it looked like looking down from the Verdi Rim.